Welcome. Welcome to Finance Bros. We are going to have another conversation, as always, about money, finance. And today we're going to start off anyway, talking about influencers. Now, everyone has obviously seen the likes of Graham Stephan, Andre Jick. There's just tons of them. I think Jeremy from Financial Education. We've got Clear Value Tax. Now, I don't believe all these are built the same, right? All of these are not the same. But it does beg to the question of who is your favorite financial influencer? Who are the ones that you have taken some information from? And by the way, when I named the people that I named are really the biggest, but when we're honest about it, look at your Jay Morrisons, right? There's a lot of people throughout the Black community as well, just spread out. There's all kinds of different influencers, right? And everybody's listening to different people, but what information are you taking in and how is it helping you, or is it helping you? That's what this is about. So are these financial influencers actually helping you? Can you look back over the past couple of years and say, hey, I've listened to this person steadily and I was in this state, and by applying this information, I'm now in a better place. So at some point, it's like you got to make a move, right? And sometimes we get stuck and not moving forward. So that's what this thing is about. And we're going to go a little bit deeper and even answer some questions today. So I do want to bring up the other part of the Finance Bros as always. So we will start off. I will bring up the Intentional Millionaire. What's up? Hey, I think you're muted. Hey, hold on one second. I think you're muted. All right. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? I'm over here struggle streaming.
It's all good, man. How's it going?
It is going pretty good. How is everything on the Perry Unlikely side of town?
Good, man. No complaints, man. I can't complain at all, man. Just trying to get this money, man.
Hey, that's always a good thing, because right now, more is better. For
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. More than ever, man. More than ever. Absolutely, man. So, yeah, man. So as I was saying, we're just going to talk about really, the financial influencers to kick this off. But then we're going to dive into really going to focus on the actual steps, right? The actual steps to reaching, freedom and starting from a baby on, right? Really going to focus on the first 3 decades of one's life. So I think it'll be a good conversation. I'll go ahead and I'll bring Sim up real quick. What's up?
Salute. What's up, fellas?
Doing
How's
good.
it going, Sim?
Man, let's talk about this money. Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
So, we got what do they call them? The usual suspects, all the big wigs, the people who were part of the voice of the finance community. So this time we were like reaching from within, talking from within the group, within the community. And I'm interested to have this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think since so obviously, when it comes to this topic, like I said, it's very broad, right? There's so many different types of financial talk out there, even crypto, right? That's financial talk, stock market. There's people out there talking about how to make money, and I think the thing about it is I don't think there's enough concentration at times on the difference between, hey, the things you're telling people to do, you didn't make your money doing that. So we have people with businesses, right? We have people with businesses. So that's why I think it's interesting. And I was telling you, like, for example, let's say pocket watching with JT. Pocket watching with JT, you'll notice now, some people are big enough on YouTube where that it is their full-time job. Not everybody is. Pocket watching with JT, you can look at his situation and you can see what he does primarily. He actually is an accountant. He owns his own business. So he's not professing to be this or that, and this is how he got his money. He's literally focused on an area where he spent his time and is spending his time. So I think something like that makes it easy. You know, we're friends with the lead attorney. He's talking about divorce. He doesn't focus on criminal law. He's giving you experience on divorce because that's what he did. Now, when it comes to these financial YouTubers, I don't think that you just have to be a financial advisor to teach people about money. Some people have an ability to teach, right? That have spent years taking it in. But there's also some people who haven't spent years and they're good at the theatrics and they're making a killing, but it's because they know how to get in front of a camera and talk to you and convince you. There's a difference between that. And of course, we live in a world now where they're not going to tell you. They're going to sell you. That's the difference. So what we'll start off with, and I'll ask you guys, when it comes to financial influencers, I'll start with you, Intentional Millionaire. Is there anyone specifically that you personally can say has helped better your financial situation? Any of these, YouTubers out there right now or not just YouTubers in any situation. It could have been TV from way back. It could be anything, right? Anyone in the financial world that has, and that includes even Dave Ramsey if he has in some aspect.
Yes, I would say for me, I would say Dave Ramsey would definitely be one. I will also say that the real estate guru. And I will also say and it's not even a financial channel, but it was just the fact that they would always touch on just life choices and the things that you do in your life. The other channel is actually is a gaming channel. And the guy's called Max Doodle. And he will even talk about, some of the things that you do, having a business mindset. So, but he's in the gaming space, in the fighting game community. But those are some of the channels that I can say that I actually utilized some of the information and was able to make strides in my own personal life.
Okay. Good deal. How about you, Sim? How about you? Any influencers that you can think of where you can say, hey, they've helped me, and if nothing else, even motivation, whatever the case is, right? That you can say has helped you.
Yeah, so I'm from the fire community, so a lot of the people from the fire community really inspired me. I'd say probably the first influencer that I really came across is the likes of Robert Kiyosaki. That's through like the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I would add Dave Ramsey really helped me to get like the nuts and bolts of like debt pay down, and then a good portion of the fire community really instructed me on the strategies that I needed to have in place in order for me to establish myself from a retirement standpoint. Bigger Pockets Money was the first show where I came across Peter Money Mustache. That's one of the figureheads in the FI community. But really, more importantly, it was Choose FI, which is a local, not even local, but it's local to me. They're about 3 hours away, and it's two guys, and they just really break down the finance game as it pertains to you approaching finance from a DIY standpoint. Those guys really inspired me. So then following that, behind that, you have the likes of Max Maxwell, who's from here in North Carolina, or who lived here in North Carolina. So I had an opportunity to meet him. I had an opportunity to meet the real estate guru, Nasir. I've met Tony the Closer's father. He's an inspirational old head in the finance space. So, I mean, there are a lot of people. There's Chris Jefferson. There's a significant amount of people who really helped me to understand the real estate game. Those guys were really pivotal in helping me with the real estate game. But then I realized that there was an opening for me as far as me having people who can help me with the application of garnering these funds or getting those funds together in order for me to be able to take down some deals. And so now I'm on YouTube, and there are people on YouTube that inspire me. the likes of the lead attorney teaching me a little bit about finance from the standpoint of like what married people experience compared to single people experience. So there's a vast amount of people, but a good portion of them are in the FIRE community. His and her money had a little bit of influence on me. You had Our Rich Journey. There's also the couple Rich and Regular. That's also pivotal in a lot of the way that they do things. It helped me to really understand that there's really no one way to do finance. There's just a multitude of different ways that you can approach things. There's certain things that are important to certain families compared to another. So it's really hard to just pin it down to just one person. I'd say that, but it's been like a trend from the time that I really started having my ears perked up by reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad all the way up until now. There have been different people at different stages in my journey. Also, some of the counterparts that I have too, right? People, personal relationships, people who've become millionaires like you guys and everything.
So I like, that's good information. That's good information. I'll give you kind of a rundown of myself. So for myself, obviously, Dave Ramsey, I would say, would be the start of it. Now, YouTube wasn't really even a thing at that point in time. Certainly not a big thing at all. Certainly, probably none of us were on there at that time. As far as at least even watching it at that time, it was very early. I want to say, and yeah, it might have even been before YouTube. I bet it was actually when I started, with Dave Ramsey. But Dave Ramsey was really that first kind of look into it for me, first foray. Also, Robert Kiyosaki. So some of this was on the radio. Some of this was just books, as Rich Dad Poor Dad, as I would see it pop up. And then, for me, when it came to like YouTube, and it's crazy, it's been several years now. Now, what I do, I generally, when I go into something new, I really dive into it. I dive into it very hard and really get as much as I can. But I'm someone who I do take action. And then at one point, so for example, real estate investing. So with real estate investing has really been around for a good amount of time on YouTube. To be honest, I think it was one of the earlier, more popular financial type things, more so than just general money talk. So I really dived down into that hole, and I actually got a real estate license, which I still have to this day. I started investing in real estate, and I still do to this day. But what ends up happening is you go through that, right? And then you reach a point where you really know what you're doing. You know how to do it. You can rinse and repeat. And really you look back at it simply, for the most part, you're watching it just because you want to stay on top of things that are happening. And it's more so motivation. Like, because once you buy a rental property, if I buy a fourplex, I can find another way to buy it. You may want to dig in a little more to find a different way, but you know how to buy it. You know how to set parameters. You can move forward. So I may go look at Bigger Pockets or something to get the motivation and keep the motivation, that people are still doing it. So that's kind of the thing for me. But what I noticed is then I got into and I've seen Graham Stephan years ago. I mean, I remember I might have been subscribed to Graham Stephan. I don't even know if he had 2,000 subscribers. I saw him from the beginning on. He started out in real estate in real estate sales. He had some investment properties that he bought at the perfect time. Now, it was when it became mainstream for me that that's when it took a turn for me, right? It seems like when it became mainstream, and it's obviously because when it became mainstream, that's when it started to really be more about just making money. It wasn't just about teaching for a lot of people. It was more about making money. So for me, back in the day with real estate, you did have people teaching you, but the reason they were teaching you, they could do deals with you, right? That was really the goal. It wasn't even, I don't even think it was YouTube money. It was just, hey, we can do deals together. You can help me. It was literally reaching out like you would with any other business. What I've seen in the finance world now is the finances of it is there's a lot of fluff for me to make money. for the influencer to simply make money. So that's what brings us to this question of, do you guys believe, and take anybody you want, right? You could take someone, let's just take someone who's 25 years old, 20 years old. Do you believe that they can listen, they can just literally get on YouTube, listen to your Graham Steffens, your Meet Kevins, I don't think I named him, your various, kind of big time financial influencers, and they will walk away 5 years later with their life changed from I'm saying your mainstream ones, because I want to clarify that, because I do believe if you go, if you looked at Dave Ramsey, his show, I think that's different than going through Dave Ramsey's course. And yeah, I do think if you go through Dave Ramsey's course at 20 or 25, it'll change your life. I really do believe that. But do we believe that about the mainstream, most of the financial information out there? Tim, you can go first if you want.
You're still muted, Tim.
Yeah, you're muted.
Here we go. Yeah, that's a loaded question, but I would say that kind of depends, because now I don't really, when I go to a lot of the channels now, I'm going for specific information per se. So I can't really say. I will say this. I do think that you're starting to see a lot of channels in the financial space kind of shift a little bit, because I think they're getting to the point where they don't really have, it's almost like you get to that point where you excel so far, you get away from the fundamentals.
Right.
So because you didn't sell so far, you get away from the fundamentals, but you got to always remember it's a lot of people coming in that doesn't have the fundamentals yet. So I think part of the thing that you don't see a lot anymore is people that does have, the larger channels really talk about and go back to the fundamentals again. And the only person I could say legitimately that still does that is Dave Ramsey, because he's still talking about the 7 baby steps. He started on that. He's still on that. So I think most of them and most people coming in today, they probably won't, unless they really do a good job of doing their backlog of when they first got started, because I think that's where a lot of the meat and potatoes is really at.
Good. I like that take, man. I think that definitely makes sense. Absolutely. How about you, Sim?
Yeah, it's a good question. This is a little bit biased. I feel like I've been fortunate, at least with the people that I've met, the likes of Nasser, the real estate guru, and Max Maxwell. I've met these guys, and I've had an opportunity to have more of a conversation with Max than I have with Nasser. But I think that you can tell when people are genuinely interested in just people's growth. A lot of times they'll just give information. There was a time when I was interested in doing some wholesaling, and in looking at Max Maxwell's videos and his channel, you can tell like his progression from the time when he first started all the way to when he became bigger. And he was one of the first people online to actually give away information as it pertains to how people are doing real estate transactions, wholesale deals, and everything. He was one of the first people who was kind of just giving us little drips of information. And I feel like the information that he shared, you have to go back to where he was at in order for you to really see like the grittiness and where he was at those times. Because at a certain point, if you see someone after they've made it halfway to the destination, it's going to look like they're not really sharing much information. But it's just, all that really happens is that it's just a change conversation. We can't expect people to not grow over time. Dave Ramsey's able to get away with the 7 baby steps because he's cycling people in, right? So he brings people in through his program, but then he takes them from the 7 baby steps. Then he's going to graduate them to this one book that's going to change their mindset as it pertains to a different ideology that he wants them to have. So then he's going to move them from there into some of his live events, you know, and then after his live events, he might move them to another event. So he has a funnel. It just doesn't look the same as everyone else. Max, for instance, was doing exactly what you were saying, Perry, where he's teaching you how to become kind of like the boots on the ground in your given city. And then hopefully at the end of the day, you'll have an opportunity to partner with him on deals. You know, you can reach out to him and say, hey, or his office and say, hey, look, I got this deal here in this location. These are the numbers. This is what's going on. I remember maybe about 10 or 12 years ago, someone told me, you can't expect people to speak the same language that you speak if they have not read the same books that you've read, you know, saying that if you don't have an opportunity to train people on how you want them to converse or interact with one another, then they're not going to be able to really have a high level conversation with you on things that are the most important and the most interesting to you.
Yeah, I think that's man, I like that. You know, so I do agree. I agree with things that you all both said. You know what I find, and it is tough, right? Because you know, I've been around long enough. You know, I've seen a lot of YouTubers, man, come in and leave the fundamentals. I'll give you an example. Even in crypto, I just don't. And I haven't been doing much in a while now, but it's because the challenge of you get so busy in a bull market, I can't go back to fundamentals because the money is made. It's the money in crypto is a little bit different. The money's not made in the fundamentals unless you're just going to buy it and hold it and leave it. And if you're going to do that, if you know enough about it and you just do that, you'll make the money anyway, even if you don't know anything about it. I don't suggest that, but I'm just being honest. That's just how it is. The money is made right in the bull market is about knowing the themes, what's new. There's going to be a lot of AI coins come out. A lot of them won't do nothing, but they'll make millionaires. Why? Because the theme is AI. So I can't go back and talk about, so it's hard to go back and talk about the base layers, the different things, the nuts and bolts of Bitcoin, how it works, zero proofs, all that stuff that if questioned, and then we did a stream, man, it seems like it's been a couple years ago now, and Jonathan Barronville was on there, and we were really getting in. He's extremely smart. We were getting into, and he can code and everything. We were getting into the actual behind the scenes thing on crypto, and I could answer that. And he knew because that's what he does as far as coding. He's very advanced, but he could ask me questions and I could answer them. But I can answer them, but I don't spend time teaching that because it's like I covered that so long ago. The ship is moving. So I definitely do understand that piece, right? And we like to reminisce on when someone was, YouTubers were small and they used to do this and do that, right? So I definitely do get that. I like what you said, Sim. I like what you said about man, I lost my train of thought.
In reference to being able to have a conversation or training the people on how you want them to converse with you, right?
Yes, that piece. Thank you. So, that's the piece is we're continually moving, right? We're continually moving. And that is really, and I think Tim may even said something, you're going to look for what you want. You're looking for bits and pieces, right? And the funny thing is when it comes to wholesaling, the best piece of information I've ever seen on wholesaling, it's a guy nobody ever knows. They'll never know. It was just some guy, small channel, who went step by step on how to wholesale the documents, every single piece. It's the best video I've ever seen on it. It's not flashy. It's just you literally, here's the files. Here's what you need. Step by step, here's what to do. If you do that, you can be successful. But I think the other piece to some of this stuff is a lot of people, right? And I believe it's the majority. And that's why the money's there. The majority of people, everyone needs the information at some point. Past that, the majority of people need the motivation. That's what most of them lack. A lot of them are just going back for the motivation is what they're doing, to get them because let's face it, wholesaling, it's one thing to learn how to wholesale, but to do it, there's only a few that are going to do it. There's only a few that are going to be successful at it. And that's just how life is in general. Only a few will actually do it. Many will talk about it. So, so to get to it, if I was asked, do I think financial YouTubers are making people, financially helping people? I do believe they're helping pique people's interest to get them in the game. Yes. Do I think they're taking them from a point of immature about it to the true road to success? No, I don't. I don't believe that. I think it's got to be your Dave Ramsey's or those who have a verified plan. Not just talk, like I said, just getting up talking about stocks is cool. But the thing is like if you just talk about options trading and someone doesn't understand it, you can tell them to put their money in there, but you know what's going to happen? Just like crypto. Hey, you should buy this. Well, you don't say you should buy it. You tell them what you're buying. That's what I've always done. I'm buying this. Here's why. I explain all the bits and pieces of why it will do well. The part is you're not going to watch the video when I told you, hey, it's time to get out of this. In my opinion, you're not going to watch that. And you know what? All your money you've made, you're going to lose it. And then you're going to be thinking, man, well, that's crap. Well, no. So you got to, a lot of it, you have to stay engaged so much, and just people aren't able to do that, So I don't think, unless there's a plan over a long amount of time, I don't think most of the financial information out there today is all that helpful. And I can certainly say it's not helpful for me, because most of what I watch now, I just know it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's not really, even your biggest ones, your Graham Steffens, your Andre Jakes, there's not anything they're going to say. I mean, it might be one thing here or there, but for the most part, whatever they say, I already knew, because I'm past that point and I'm actually doing financial stuff, right? There was a time when I could even learn a little bit about real estate investing from Graham Stephan, but now I've been doing it so long, there's not much there. So I think it's a cycle, right? I just think it's a cycle, overall. But yeah, I just want to get you guys' take on that, and we're going to really get into some nuts and bolts here. But I want to ask you first, any other takes just on financial YouTube in general that you want to make before we kind of get into the real focus on how you get there, how you make it?
I just wanted to add this. I think you said it, Perry. I think the key thing is that Dave have over a lot of the gurus is that he has a system that works. And I think that's the key, because I think it's a mixture of what you just shared, but also what Sim shared is having the system, but then you got to tweak the system based on some of the new information that come down the pipe. But the system, the fundamental pipe don't change. And I think that is the real key, because like you stated, Perry, there's nothing really new under the sun per se, but the implementation of that stuff under the sun is what's different, because it's based on the individuals. So I just think that that's where, when you talk about finances, I think that's the reason where that you can have anybody come in at any level and be able to, get it, follow suit, and then be able to process all the way through. And I think even what I mentioned, I think that's the part that normally lose people, is because you have people that may not be as financial savvy coming in for only certain things, because they only dealing with that certain issue or that certain piece at that given moment. So they only come for that, but they don't understand that it's a process on the back end. So they normally skip the process and they just go to that one thing. It's kind of like the person that goes right to, they get a lump sum of money and they just want to flip the money. So they just do an investment, but they forgot about that. You probably should have paid off your debt first. It's that type of concept.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's a good point. And you know what's funny? I think it's almost funny, that it's not perfect, but you can almost ask people a couple questions and see where they're at. Like, for example, and some of this is bias, right? Clear value tax, right? Clear value tax, and that's why I put him on there. There are people who like clear value tax is straight up, real simple. Not a lot of jump cuts, not a lot of this, not a lot of that. It's very simple. I find that information the most helpful for me. And and the thing is, you could tell where someone's at by that, right? He's not selling you anything on you can be this, it's very honest stuff about what's going on with the economy, stuff like that. And that's where I'm at now. Like, hey, it's like you're on the plane, you're at cruising altitude, right? And you just keep on focusing on getting to where you're going. So I bring that channel up specifically because, like, for example, he spoke on something. I think I might have saw it maybe yesterday or the day before, and it was about if you're self-employed. When it comes to taxes, a lot of people don't know. You don't just even if you set the taxes aside, you don't just hold them for a year and then go pay. The government is going to you're going to pay interest of 8% on that. That's something that's important to me. This year, I have worked independent this whole year, completely independent. That's important, right? That's stuff that is important to me at this point now. So it's just that type of stuff where eventually, if you do mature, the stuff that you listened to earlier will, it's not going to have the same impact. So you have to go looking at that next level. And that's why networking is important, because there is someone who's been, it's funny. There's a lot of people who aren't on YouTube that have been investing for 40 years in real estate. And those guys, they can teach you stuff nobody can teach you, but they're just not they're not on YouTube. That's not what they do. They focus on the real estate. So you learn stuff like that as you go, as you continue to grow. And just one more thing I'll say about, Dave Ramsey is I think you also just have to check yourself too, in terms of, now we've talked about Dave Ramsey and there's been some things with Dave Ramsey we don't agree with, pieces of it. And we never discourage his overall message, but pieces of it. But we're talking about actual factual numbers here. There's a different conversation. But you even see influencers, right, that haven't proven to have any money that have issues with Dave Ramsey. And it's like the baby step. I mean, there's only so much problem you can have with, the baby steps. So we've really merged all this together, right? We've merged this thing together where it just pays now to be, to kind of stir up controversy. And that's what some of this is. But, I bought that up because that's where a lot of people are getting their information from. And I feel overall in finance, it's very surface level. And that's why I want to talk about today. What we're really going to focus on is, what does it really take? What are the tangible things? And I'll start off with one to give you guys an idea, and then you guys can chime in. What are tangible things over the first 3 decades of your life that you need basically, right? So even if it's, 0 from the time you're born to the time you're 10, now this would be stuff your parents would certainly need to be a part of, right? And a lot of people just don't receive that. And then from the time you're, from 11 on up, right, to 20, still going to involve your parents a lot, right? And then from 21 to 30, now you're on your own. Hopefully some of those habits that you've been given, if you have, you're able to put those into, or not put them into, into action. Hopefully they're already in action, right? And then you continue with it and you build upon it. Or you got to make that decision, or hopefully you find out quickly, if you did not receive some of that stuff that you needed, that you start searching for it. And see, that's why we talked about the financial influencers, because many people that go searching for it, well, they end up going down this long path, and there's probably a simpler way to get there. So just to start it off, when I think of, a newborn, right? Now, when you're just born, there's only so much, you're not focused on financial freedom, right? You're a baby. So this is on the parents. What should the parents be doing? The parents at this point, to me, should be focused on how can we pay for education? That's just very simple. And by the way, I want to be very clear. When I say focused on education, I'm not just talking about college. I'm talking about, and this is me with 2 small kids. This is something people don't think of. I'm talking about the education from the very day that you will be dropping them off somewhere and you will be going to work. Because what I can't fathom now, we think about, and this is coming from a father, so now I see it as important. A couple of years ago, wouldn't have cared, wouldn't have thought twice about it, but I see it now. Now, you think about daycare, right? We think about daycare, dropping your kids off, letting them slobber on toys and play around. Now, my kids do go to a private school, right? In terms of right now, they will eventually go into public school system, but it's because of their age. But what I can assure you is they're actually learning stuff, and they're learning stuff from the very beginning. And I'm talking about at 2 years old, having teachers say, your child is advanced in this. I think they can go on to the next level, and do, like, someone paying enough attention on what they're learning to say, hey, they need to work on this or need to do that. And the reason why I'm saying it's twofold, it's college is important, but also that time is important, because I want you to think about this. If my child has had this much attention put on him, and he's been taught to count, he's been taught to do all this, even kids, a friend of ours, their kid is learning a different language, same age as my son. If my children are getting this type of focus before they're even 4 and 5, how can your kid keep up and you're just taking them to a daycare to slobber on toys? They're not going to know nothing. I mean, it's just, there's going to be such a big gap between my kid actually going to a school, right? And all the stuff they've learned before pre-K versus just dropping them off. And mind you, I did go to a daycare, right? So it's not to say you can't learn stuff, but I'm just saying the world is getting so advanced. Your child's at a disadvantage if the first real learning they ever had, like true focused learning, is pre-K. They're not even going to be on the same. They're not even going to be on the same page. And I'm blown away sometimes by how my child understands concepts. When someone at 2 or 3, like 2 years old, I think maybe 3, says I'm busy. And it's not even saying that, but I asked him to do something. He said, I can't, I'm busy. It's not that he said that. He said, I got a lot of stuff going on. It's the concept. He understands. He actually understood the concept of being busy. Some of it he probably heard, but we even kind of took him down this trail of, talking, and he really understood. And so I didn't want to go on and on about that, but that's the first thing I noticed is just like, you got to really think about that. Like from the start, setting your kids up to just knowledge, and then focusing on the aspect of how will I pay for them to go to college? Because the other piece is, if I can get them through college, even if college isn't worth it, as people say, okay, cool. Well, if I can afford it and they won't owe nobody anything, well, it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it if it's free to you. It's worth it for anybody if you can go to college for free. So that's what I'll start with. And that's solely on the parent, right? That piece. And anything you guys say is likely at that age going to be on the parent too. But we're talking 0 to 10 though, right? So I'm just talking the first part of that. And I kind of did that because I do have kids, right? So, whether you guys want to speak on that or you want to speak on the piece from when they start in school up to 10, I just wanted to kind of kick that off because I do have kids. So what are you guys' thoughts? First 10 years of your life, what that should look like.
Tim, you want to go? I can go. You all right, so you know, it's an interesting thing that you question that you asked. I think that there are a number of different ways we could really like consider these things. As a parent, I remember when my son was born, and I remember someone told me, they said that, you know, when the children are born here at the hospital, they're all born, generally speaking, assuming that they're healthy, they're all born with the same exact opportunities, same exact experience. They can be born at the same exact time, but the same exact age. And what you have to say is the only deviation that you start to see is once those children go outside those doors. That's when the privileges start being applied. That's when the affluence starts to be applied. That's when maybe a deprived state of circumstances might be exposed. The traumas, whether they be both good or bad, they become imposed on the child. And it's interesting. I think that there are probably plenty of parents out here who would say that if they had an opportunity to do it again, they would have done it maybe slightly a little bit different. You know, if I was to think about something that I feel like would really empower my child or children, it's probably really just teaching them how to think. I would say that if I can teach my child how to think on a higher level, you know, I think that the children today are really being challenged. They say that the exposure that they have to technology, education, opportunities for growth today far exceed what people were doing in the past. And so I like the idea of exposing them to as much phonetics as early as possible. I even saw something where someone or a child as young as 9 years old was learning how to read, you know, with the phonetics, identifying colors and everything like that. I don't want to emphasize too much on like business and, you know, and being growing up too early, but I do want to expose the child to as many languages, as many opportunities as possible in order for them to develop their brain. I would start somewhere along those lines, and then given given the place that you live in the world, then you can understand the tax bases that you can kind of take advantage of. You know, like in America, we have the 529 college plan that allows parents to save up money in order for them to fund their child's education. But education is just not, it's not just in the formal sense. It's also it's unofficial. It's the things that they learn in these social environments, whether they're around children who speak Spanish, French, you know, any other language. I speak another language. If I had an opportunity to really do it and I had the time back then, I would have really kind of ingrained more of the nuances of my language in order for him or them to really be familiar with the culture and how things are done, with using maybe my language as a basis and then kind of expounding upon the English, because language is one of those things that you either you use it or lose it. So if the contact time is only going to happen at home, let's have the conversation in our language at home, and then they have almost an unlimited amount of time to be exposed to people who speak English here in America. Those are some of the things that I take into consideration, and then of course taking advantage of like Roth IRA all the way up until them becoming an adult and everything.
Right. No, good information. Good information. Like I said too, is you know, for myself, you know, I did pretty much just go to daycare. I can't even remember if there's much learning, right? So I think at the end of the day, if you're a free thinker, you'll be okay, right? You're gonna be okay. But it should always be about advancing, you know, those who come after you. It's especially as far as your offspring. Right. So no, good, definitely some good points, Sim. Tim, um, what what do you think, man? What specifically what do you think in that age, you know, from being born to 10? I think it's easy to say a parent, right, should focus on, or what a child needs to receive to really start them off on that financial journey.
I think it's a few things. I think the first thing is the parent should understand that once they have a child, they have a personal responsibility, just like providing the shelter and the care for the child. I think they have to understand that they have a personal responsibility for teaching their child, and it's not nobody else's system, whether it be daycare, whatever. They're responsible for teaching. So I think they need to start teaching them about finances. They need to start planting the seeds. When the child learn to write and able to talk, I think they should start using some of the terms around their child so they can start picking it up. And I also think that as soon as the child get the Social Security number, they should start either a UGMA account, a Roth IRA, a Cloverdale account, or a 529 account. I think they absolutely should go ahead and start, because the great thing about that, they got time to work on their side. So
absolutely. No, I think that's a good, I definitely think I think those are very important. Like you said, I think I mentioned it earlier, maybe even before we hopped on, just as far as like compound interest, right? I mean, like you said, time is on your side. And I think parents don't realize how much they can do just by doing that. If you don't do anything else, right? Even if you did nothing else and you just start to invest for them or put something away for them, you're offering them something. And it doesn't even have to be a lot of money. Even, let's face it. And I know not everybody's in that situation, but just think about, even if you put up, even if you put up $100 a month, right, for your child, and there was no interest for 18 years, you still be way more than most people can give their child at 18 years old. So
exactly.
That's just $100, no interest, right? So I don't, and I'm not sure the math on that. It's got to be somewhere. It's got to probably be close to $20,000, right?
Yeah, I'll do it right now. You said to what age?
Yeah, I said if up to 18, you just put $100 a month away with no interest, just $100 a month, straight up for 18 years. That alone is going to still be a nice amount of money that you could offer them that most people just can't offer.
Should be like 40-some thousand, I would think.
21.6.
21.6. Okay.
With no interest.
With no interest, just straight up. So,
yeah.
So I mean, even something as simple as that would be nice. So I definitely think those are extremely important. So now we go into, and I think those are good points. Now I think what we'll do, we'll go into, that 11, and we can just say 10 to 20. I know the years are, we said newborn to 10. We'll just say now 10 to 20. When now we're getting to a place where it still is heavily influenced by the parents, but you start to understand the concepts, right? And look, regardless of what your belief is, right? When you talk about giving, tithing, if that's something that's important, this is that area where, and really even I think the back, really even before 10, but certainly at 10 and up, that is where you're teaching your children that, because that's where habits really start to be formed. So, for example, whether it's tithing, whether it's just, hey, making money, getting birthday gifts, hey, you put away 10%, you put away 20% on what you make. To me, in this space, that's where that comes. And it becomes the norm. No matter what I make in life, I set 20% aside. And if you hold your child's hand in doing that from the time they're 10, maybe even a little bit before, and it just becomes their norm, it's just what they know. It just becomes what they know. I mean, we're creatures of habit. So it's like, hey, your birthday, you got 80. I mean, you got 100. Remember, here's 80, but 20 has to go in the bank. 20, my bad, start that over. 20 has to go in the bank. So I really think that's where you establish those habits is during that time frame. And then you've got, if you've been doing that for at least 6, 7, 8 years, look at the habit that you've established. And then they go into maybe 16, right? Whatever, 14 with a worker's permit. They're getting their check. okay, and they need to really probably save more, because at that age you don't really have anything to worry about. But the real focus is, they start to understand about the taxes. Hey, there's taxes. You give them the breakdown. You let them understand, hey, you understand you worked 20 hours and the math says it's this much, but let me show you why you're only getting this much. That's something you're going to deal with forever. I think that's what I think you're explaining to them. You don't get to keep it all. And you're not at the point now where we're really going to explain to you how to offset your taxes. It ain't that deep yet. But I think you're explaining to them, hey, here's how taxes work. And honestly, the more you make, the more they're going to take, but you're better off making more. So I think that's what you're focused on for me at that age, is just really explaining to them the process of money, explaining to them, hey, a checkbook, balancing it, what you have to do. And I think you just teach them. And my kids are young, but they don't know this concept, but I certainly think by that age, you're putting in their head, hey, this, and I even always am telling my brother about this. His kids are older, right? Is that, like, when they come to visit, let them know, like, this house, they can't have this. Unless you work for this ain't something you just stumble in. You don't stumble upon this. Like, you got to work hard to have this. And I darn sure make sure my kids know it. Like, the room you lay in, all the stuff I've had to go through for years for you to be able to do that, you better always stay in line. Like, it's teaching them the process of how hard it is to make it, because we have this idea that it's just easy, and so stuff like that. That's what I think is important during that, certainly, man, from that 10 to 18, because once they're out, then they're going to learn the hard way anyway. Right. But that's my thoughts on that. Any thoughts, Tim? 10 to 18. Any thoughts on what you're trying to teach, or what, like I said, it's what you think a parent should teach, or what you think a child should be learning. And let me just toss in there at the back end of that, for me, is probably where you really start to do like a Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because they can start to see the concept of, like, look, here's the Benz that you can't afford. That same money would have given you this, that would have got you the Benz. Like, you start to put the concepts in their head of understanding the different types of lifestyles people are going to lead. And that just because you see this on TV, like, dude is broke. He looks like he has it, but he's broke. Just those concepts or whatever. What do you think, Tim?
I think you're dead on. And so I just add to it. I think one of the first thing is, I think the parents should expose them to one of the bills. If nothing else, a cell phone bill, because I think they have to know that, one, everything is not free. Two, I think they get a chance to visually see the responsibility, and not just to be third party, meaning somebody that's, because it now can allow them to ask real-time questions. They get a chance to see, if you have anybody other than T-Mobile, they get a chance to see the taxes and the surcharges and all these other taxes on the tax. So that's one. I also think, going back to your example, they should absolutely be reading some type of financial book. I think that they should, if they can get them in some type of course or class, or even have the conversation with a tutor, I think they need to talk about that. I also think that's the time when the parents should be talking to them about the outlook on their life. I don't think they should wait until they're 18, because you have more kids that start college, or young adults start college, and they don't necessarily know what they want to do. They don't have no insight. They don't even know, they have no idea what their actually options are. So I think those type of things need to happen. And I also think when the parents looking at the courses that may be offered at the schools, and I know that financial teaching is not in a lot of schools, but if the school does have some of those as electives, then they need to sign their child up for them. I think those are some of the things that need to happen. But I also think that they should now task them with something that they can now start planting more seeds. For example, if they, like you stated, Perry, if they're working, then they should have a responsibility. I think they should charge them. Now, I think the parents should absolutely charge their kids if they're working. Here's the thing. It don't have to be a charge from the standpoint they're taking the money, using the money. They could be taking the money, putting it back into their investment, but it's giving them the mindset that you have to be responsible. I think the parents should expose them to credit, meaning having the conversation. If the parents have a credit card, I think that they should explain it to them. See, I think this is the best way to really equip. I don't think it should be Dave Ramsey talk to them about credit. I don't think it should be Graham Stephan on YouTube. I don't think it should be the Finance Bros. I really think that should start in the home, because it should be in a controlled environment, and it'll do two things. One, it'll get the parents on board to get more understanding, because the best way to learn is when you got to teach. So I think that's one. But also now the kids get a chance to ask stuff real time, and not this, okay, yeah, I get that, but it don't apply to me. No, it applies in our household right now, real time. And then if you're not doing great, then I think that helps too, because now it should force you to want to do better. But also now it should allow the kids to see something that they know that they don't want to become part of. But too many times we get so caught into trying to make and show and point everything out to make it look right and perfect. But we forget that it's so much learning in our imperfects. It's so much learning in our mistakes. And I'm not saying you got to show them everything, but they need to be aware, because when you think about it, how many times do you hear about young adults say they didn't know their parents had this going on financially, and they find out, but then they find out it's so much bad energy from whatever happened, or so much financial devastation, that the kids look at it now, and now they fear finances because the trauma that they experienced and they witnessed from their parents, but it wasn't firsthand, it was secondhand, because they were just on the sideline watching. So I think those are just some of the things I see now. And I'm saying that as someone that don't have kids, but I'm saying that for someone that's set with so many families that has kids. And these were some of the stories and the examples of some of the things that they said they could do it over. This what they was do. But also for me, just being an outsider with an assessment of, this is what I would want to happen for my family.
Absolutely, man. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Tell me what you think, Sim. What's your thoughts on it, man? We're talking 10 to, pretty much 20 years old. What do you see as the focus at that time that's going to yield tangible results, on down the road for individuals, whether it's the parents or things that the child should be picking up on themselves?
I like what Tim said. I think they're really good points that he's mentioned about the parents being the first point of admiration as far as finances, managing their finances. I think that it's a tricky situation because, like, let's say, for instance, look at today. How many adults do we know today that are walking around traumatized or have anxiety as a result of the lack of finances, the financial trauma that they experience at a young age, right? And then you also think about, like, the whole idea of swimming. Let's say finances were a skill similar to swimming, which it's not the same, because finances are really something that you have contact with more frequent than you would swimming, unless you have a swimming pool in your backyard or you live at the beach. There's a good majority of people out here who are not prepared to swim, right? They don't know how to swim. They can't teach their children how to swim. In the event of emergency, if it's them being inside water, they're going to be destitute. I mean, they're at the mercy of someone coming to rescue them and them splashing in the water. I think that what Tim is saying is very important. We should approach finances as just a core function of life. It's something that you need to have. It's what we are doing every day when we go to work. We are working in order for us to be financially compensated. So why do we put ourselves, or why would we put ourselves in a situation where we're not able to have any influence on our child in a positive manner? We're not talking about the Columbia House and people getting CD accounts or people getting phone bills or anything like that in the child's name, but we're legitimately talking about putting the child in position to be able to do like Tim said, for them to at least pay you or make some sort of contribution, even if it means that's something that you on the back end are contributing towards something that's going to benefit them. That's what I did for my child. For his car, he paid for half his car. I paid for the other half. The monies that I used for that I paid myself, I'm using to pay for the vehicle. The money that he contributed towards me, I'm investing it on his behalf. He has a Roth IRA on my side. He has a Roth IRA on his own, and he's putting himself in position. We can look on a quarterly basis, and this is something that's really exciting. On a quarterly basis, if they have investments, you can show them, hey, look, in this quarter, this is how much we were paid in dividends, right? As a result of those dividends that we were paid, this is how much our shares are growing every quarter as a result of us making that one-time contribution towards being a stakeholder in this given security, right? And so as a result, now you get compensated on a quarterly basis because you're a shareholder in a given security. So experiencing something like that at the young age, I believe that could be something that's really interesting. I would have loved for me to really understand the finance game at 10 years old. And I think that you're at a disadvantage if your parents are not financially astute or they're not really exposed to the opportunity that allows them to be able to say, hey, okay, $100 a month, we're going to contribute towards your future in this way and that way, you know. So I think that I second what Tim was saying. I would just say that we have to also consider that there are people today who are walking around, one, financially traumatized and want to do everything in their power to run away from being in a situation where they're conscious about every single dollar. They just want to manifest everything and say, hey, I just got to think the money is there and it's going to find its way to be there. And then the second part, I think that we just have to make sure that the parents are empowering themselves in order for them to be capable of empowering their children.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Let's take a second. Because I hadn't done it. I should have already done it already, but let's just take a second in between the last kind of phase, because we're talking about 3 decades here. And let's just touch on supporters. As always, we definitely appreciate it. Always appreciate the support. Shout out to Peter Investor M, as always. And I'll just do some call outs and I'll go back through real quick. Caramel Drip, shout out to you as well. We got Tam. So, and I always, we always try to tell you that we definitely appreciate any support, and we enjoy the back and forth. I think we got some of the best contributors as far as just comments and feedback, out there, period. So, Conscious Business Services and Opportunities, shout out to you. Most definitely. Let's see. Let me scroll down through here. Shout out to Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. Who else do we have in the chat? Christopher Williams. Shout out to you as well. I continue to say thanks to everyone. Cryptonomics. Shout out to you. And let's see if I think we got about everyone. So I just wanted to at least, tell everybody that we appreciate you. Let's go back and see if we have any questions at all. We'll cover those real quick. One thing Caramel Drip said, just coming through to help the analytics and watch hours. We definitely appreciate that. I was going to say my analytics, I've been on hiatus. My channel's analytics been on life support. So I definitely we appreciate that, and we just appreciate the support in general. why is Dave why is Dave more marketable? And I'm not, because obviously we talked about Dave earlier. I'm not sure I know the context. I'm not sure I know the context per se of that. You guys might, but I do, if we're just talking about Dave and him being marketable. To me, if we're talking about Dave versus your regular, YouTubers and all that, because one thing about Dave, right, is Dave is not a YouTuber. He's on YouTube, but he was a business and a marketing machine long before he was on YouTube, right? So the brand of Financial Peace and all that was put together, and he had to get, and I'm not saying that YouTube's not the hard way. We know it is, but he had to get it out the mud the hard way, like radio, everything but YouTube. So I think YouTube was like, Dave added YouTube to his business, whereas other people, YouTube's been their business the whole time when they talk about finances. So that's why the way I look at Dave being more marketable, and he's just a trusted source and literally has people. See, that's the difference too. We didn't touch on that. Dave doesn't have fake people in the comments talking about, oh, you changed my life. Now he's got people driving to Nashville to shout it out, right, from across the country. And he's not paying them to do that, right? That's the real deal. So that's the difference, where Dave has this thing going for him that other people don't. You guys can touch on that if you have anything that's what me touching on that from reading the comment. It may be out of context though, but I just wanted to mention that. Any other questions? Let me see.
Only thing I say to that real quick, Perry, is Dave had a system, and that system was before the digital age.
Yes, correct. And I still got I've never used it, but I still got the little foldable thing that you keep your money in. You keep that little envelope system. I still got it. I might have used it for a little while, but it still looked brand new. So I still got the Dave's envelope system and everything. And now it's funny, think about it. The concept of somebody using an envelope system now, where everything's card, is almost like people don't even want to you don't even have to touch the register anymore and put your hands all over stuff. So that's kind of like the passing of money. I went to spend cash and people looked at me silly. Like, are you handing me dirty money? I'm like, it spins, but that's just we've come so far now, right? It's just crazy. But let me see.
And I remember 2015. I thought the envelope system was so archaic, But
yeah,
looking at it today, man, yeah, I barely have cash. I mean, I have cash maybe twice a year. But I barely ever have cash. The only time I have cash is when I go to the airport. So you gotta shoot the people some change, for them to do like the curbside check-in, or if someone's doing they call it a sky cap, the people who push like the elderly people to the gate. So you got to shoot them some change. But beyond that, man, it's hard to really find a good use for cash, because you can just Apple Pay and all the other electronic peer-to-peer sharing platforms too.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, shout out to Intentional Millionaire. He said, yes, Dave getting that long-term and short-term money. That is very true. That's the thing too, is, Dave will hold you to some stuff that it's like, man, I got to struggle for 15 years to get this rental property. Dave's got and that's the piece that we really let off with, is Dave has the business, right? That Dave's the ultimate, because he's making a killing on YouTube, but that money's nothing to him. He's got so much real estate. It's absolutely crazy. So yeah, he certainly is getting it. He's getting it both ways. No doubt at all. Let's see. Tam said, Perry, sound like you're breaking up. It might just be me. I'm not sure. Hopefully it is clear. Hopefully it is clear now. If it wasn't earlier. Uncle Stu said, salute to the chat and the panel. Let's see. Cryptonomics comes in, I think, as always. Sup? very simple. Let me see what else Cryptonomics had to say. Christopher Williams says thanks for this stream. Absolutely. I think I just thought this was important to, give some tangible stuff. And I'm not coming down on some of the other information, but yeah, if we're just talking about this new car company, there's going to have hydrogen cars. It's going to change the world. You can make some money. We don't know when the cars will be ready, if the concept's real. And let's face it, if you're in the shape most Americans are in, whatever little money you got to put in it, you're not going to get rich off of it. So when we get to the stock market, if we're not talking 401k, when we get to the stock market, you got other stuff to build first. If you don't even have a habit of saving, how can I expect you to put your money in the stock market? So I just think there's levels to this and there's steps to this, which is important. Certainly. So let me see what else we got. Peter Investor M. Let's see. I like that actually. Make them play the Monopoly games and any other games, teaching them budgeting, savings, and investing. That is very important. I like that a lot. Thank you for that, Peter Investor M. That's extremely important because it's all about the habits. It's all about the habits and just teaching them, getting them used to it and accustomed to it. Cryptonomics, my opinion, people need to teach kids the religion of saving money. And I don't disagree with that. It should be a religion and serious. Saving money can save you in life, period. Now, what I like about what Cryptonomics is saying here, that's another thing that we see on social media. And I probably said it myself. I might have even said it myself. I don't think I usually take that harsh stance, but saving money is dumb because inflation. Well, it's better than having nothing. I'd rather have 100,000 losing money to inflation than not have $1. So we come with these hard stances, and it's like we got to look at each person's situation. So to tell people, it's not dumb. I keep my money in assets, or I'm poor. I'm cash poor. Yeah, but you're worth $200 million, Robert Kiyosaki. And it's more than that. But I'm saying it's like, yeah, but look at all the money you're worth. It's like, it's okay to be cash poor when you can afford to sell a house that's worth $100,000 for $14,000 to get some quick cash. It's okay to be house poor, but your average person can't do that. Right. So I do like that. I still think savings is important. And even with savings, there's different levels to it. There's different ways to save. I do have some money in savings that I just keep there. I don't care what inflation does. I have some cash that if I need it, I can, act and move real quick with it. And I think that's important. And yes, it's not at the house. It's not in a shoebox. It's in the bank. You know what I mean? So, that, and then and then some people, I don't think it hurts to keep a 20 on you. Just real simple. Because here's the deal. In the grand scheme of things, if you have a 20 on you and you got to do some parking, depending on where you live, you don't have to run in a place and have the ATM charge you $4 to get your cash out. Just go to the bank, keep a little 20 on you. If somebody try to stick you for it, just hand it over. It's not that deep. Some people don't keep cash because they're afraid of getting robbed. I understand all that, but ultimately it's just about making good decisions. But that's a great point. Very good point. So I say religion because if you're not saving, you're in debt in this society. The debt is the devil, literally. And I agree. I don't disagree with any of that. I don't disagree with any of that at all. Most people think they can save, but they don't, and they can't. This is absolutely true. Now, Uncle Stu made this comment, and I saw it earlier, but I wasn't sure if he was talking in general to people or if he was talking about from a comment. He said, stop making excuses. Parents deal with money daily, so kids need to deal with it too. The issue is how to make money legally. So, yeah, I don't know if that was specifically towards maybe a comment someone said, but yeah, I do agree with that. That is the piece there. It is about how to make money. And I think anybody, you guys, certainly our age, you guys on the panel, I had to learn, learning to make money was in waves. You know what I'm saying? You go through waves of making money. No, like I said, I worked at KFC, I worked at Burger King, I waited tables. It was years of just waves. And then, I graduated from college. You take less than you deserve, right? They're going to give you what you can get. And it depends on profession. You hone your skills. Then you figure out how to get to the next level, right? A lot of people are not willing to move. I will. So not anymore, but I moved across, I moved back closer to home. I moved to DMV area, right? So boom, there's a step up. Then I moved to Atlanta, and another step up. And you continue to work your way, you work your way up. And at that point, that's why they say, I forget what years they say, it might be 40s, late 40s into mid 50s, or mid 40s to mid 50s. They say when you're making the most, it's because of the skills that you've acquired. So you should be focused on acquiring those skills as early as possible. Find a way to make those skills that a normal person has at 45, well, you got them when you're 35. That's because at the end of the day, there's no age limit on it. If you got the skills, you'll get the job. So that's what it comes down to. On that, which simple habits should be introduced to children to build a financial foundation that they can model from the parents. And I think we touched on some of this, some of the habits. And I think we touched on this. I don't know what time that was, but the biggest habits, I think it is saving. I think it's very specific when we talk about savings. I think it's saving and just it's whatever you get, a certain amount comes out off the top. You learn to live on that amount. So you learn to live on 80%. Change that number how you want. You can make it 70 or whatever. Learn to live on 80%. And that's after tax, right? What you actually got. You learn to live off 80% of that. You learn to budget so you know where your money's going. And there's another piece here in a minute I'm going to touch on to kick off this next last segment as far as the last 10 years of that decade, taking you to 30 years old. That will kind of be that last piece of that. And we're about to get back to that right now. I just want to skim through here, see if we didn't miss anything else. Cryptonomics. Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Now, I was going to say there's massive power, man. When I think about it, if I was to go back to probably me being as young as possible, or just a child that's as young as possible, I really want them to understand the process of reconciling their spending, right? So there needs to be certain pain that's associated with a given transaction. So if your child goes and they purchase something, or they want to purchase something from the store, they need to understand the pain of releasing those funds, right? They need to understand the pain of having to write down and reconcile that transaction. And then they need to deal with the pain of observing what is left over after those transactions have taken place. It's only in those situations that they're going to have the habits to be able to deal with the reality of the decisions and the consequences that come as a result of their decisions. I think that as an adult, when you start to look at your breakdown of how you've spent, not even so much talking about budgeting per se, but it's more so about you figuring out, okay, how much am I spending at Chick-fil-A this month? Am I more dedicated to Chick-fil-A than my own goals? Am I more dedicated to Chipotle than my own goals? Or am I more dedicated to any other expenditure than the things that I need to do for myself? It's only through that pain and those actions that you're going to be able to say, man, yeah, I'm doing too much, And it's the same thing that you said recently, Perry. You said, man, I'm losing it over here. I don't know what I'm doing. But it's only through you going through those motions that you had an opportunity to feel the pain of the negative consequences that come as a result of you spending your time in a space that you don't really want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Great points, man. Great points. Peter Investor M said, Cryptonomics was saying at Peter Investor M, saving. So once again, on the savings, which I definitely, as I said earlier, is a major part of it. And I think they were just going back and and forth and talking about that. Let's see if we got anything else, and I want to hop back real quick.
Tim had the reply.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Intentional millionaire. What do you got for us?
I just had one word for Peter's question. I think the biggest thing that a child can model after the parents is discipline. But I think that's why I go back to the parents have to be transparent on something, because now they got to teach them the discipline, let them see the discipline real time so they can emulate the discipline. I think that's the key. I think that's the fundamental basis of finances is discipline. If you don't have the discipline, I don't give a crap how much money you make. You're going to lose. You're going to absolutely lose. So the discipline is where everything comes together. And I think the parents, that's the biggest, if I was to sum it up in one word, I think that's the model that the parents need to do. And that's what the kids can really learn, the meat and potatoes.
Absolutely. All right. Let's, what I want to do real quick is, I want to, start just this last piece of just, and once again, thanks to everybody for the support.
It was one more question, Perry.
Was there? Okay. Let me see if
the young lady, Miss Love, she said, would you recommend Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
All right, let me see.
It was at 929.
929?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here we go. All right. Me, I absolutely would. To me, that was there's a few things that fundamentally shifted the way I thought, and that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad was absolutely one of them, and Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. Those are two that would massively change the way that I thought. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the way that I looked at assets, understanding how assets, basically assets and liabilities, how, and I know people put it on the shirts and it looks cute, but at the end of the day, what is it? If I have a house that's paid for that I can use to, like your home you live in is not really an asset. Now, it can be an asset in terms of the fact that if it's got a certain value, right, there still is somewhat an asset. But the truth is, if you're making payments on it and it's not really making you money, right, if a house is even paid off, trust me, what you got with the upkeep, it's not really an asset because it's still costing you money. But if it's a rental property, then it's an asset. Whereas, the 7 Series Beamer is nice, but it's a liability, a depreciating liability as to where a rental property is appreciating. So just breaking down that is one thing that Rich Dad, Poor Dad does, but it's more so giving you the two different views of it and how America thinks about the guy. I've always said this. There are many lawyers that make well, and there's many that don't. But because they have a nice suit on, the girls get googly-eyed over them, and people talk about how they're killing it, but they're not making as much as the plumber. That perception is what Rich Dad, Poor Dad helps with as well, which I think one of them was like a professor, right? I think but also that's what Dave Ramsey helped with me. It was perception. That's what really got me into this thing of just like, I didn't care what rappers were showing. I didn't care what nobody was showing. I started to understand, hey, you can have your $1,000 car payment. And this was at a time when that really, really mattered, right? You can have your $1,000 car payment. I'm going to keep mine cheap so I have the flexibility to grow. That's what really Dave Ramsey taught me. But on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's just it's a great book. I'd say that has been the most important one that I've probably ever read. It's up there, top 3 easy. You guys, what's your thoughts on Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I think it's a great book. I think definitely pick it up, and I say read it and go through it. But I think it's a book where you should read at least 3 to 4 times where you can really grasp some of that information.
Absolutely.
Because it is a lot of information. Another book that I will recommend, at least for me, because Rich Dad Poor Dad was one of the books, but the other book for me was The Secrets of the Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv Eker. I think that's a great book because it really talks about the deprogramming and the reprogramming mindset you have to have and the action that it takes to get the type of financial outcomes that you're looking for. Because I think a lot of times we forget that it's certain stigmas we may have about money, and we need to deprogram that and reprogram it with a different outlook or perspective of money. Because it's hard to create or generate something you don't like.
Absolutely. Sim, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a lot of books, and Rich Dad Poor Dad really allowed me to really have that business, that entrepreneurship itch scratched. It really helped me to apply like tangible logic to the idea of running a business, like the logic of assets and liabilities. It helped me out with a lot of that. And I think that one of the other books that really had a significant impact on me was Think and Grow Rich. That was an interesting book that inspired me. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki also had a book called Cash Flow Quadrant, and it broke down the different spaces that money exists in. You have the employee, you have the self-employed, you have someone who's a business owner, and then you have ultimately the investor. Those are the 4 different spaces that we all exist in. There's a lot of different things that you can learn out here, and I found myself really pursuing a lot of these business people. And we covered some books, I think, in the last conversation that we had not too long ago. Those are some of the books that I can think of off the top of my head. There's some books that have been they're pretty controversial, and I feel like they really teach you like American money, because we can talk about money at large, right? But like money in America with the likes of The Color of Money, so you can understand how money was provided or opportunities were provided to, Black people, were not provided to Black people, but provided to everyone else, whether it's in the form of not giving you an opportunity to live in somebody's neighborhood through restrictive covenants, or not giving you the opportunity to get access to loans after you left the military with the GI Bill. So there are a number of different things that are out here. The other book that I can just think of off the top of my head that was really pivotal is The Whiteness of Money. And that's a book by I think her name is Barbara Dorothy Brown. She's an attorney out of Atlanta, and she talks about the same exact thing, about how accrued disadvantage really negatively impacted the people. In my opinion, anyone who's not originally from here, they need to read these books that talks about accrued disadvantage here in these Americas before they really fix their mouth to be able to say, hey, people are not taking advantage of this opportunity. People are not taking advantage of that opportunity. You have to understand the systemic ways that people are being kept down before you can utter any sort of foolishness about how people are not optimizing the opportunities before them today.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, as always, man. So let me kick off this last piece. We're not going to be much longer. I think we've been on about an hour and a half now. But I'm going to just kick off this last piece. We're talking about from 20 to 30. What I think is important when you talk about 20 to 30, and just to reiterate, we went from, newborn to 10, 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30. So I think when we reach in 20, you know, we've had that time. Hopefully the parents have instilled in us, you know, the basics, right? Have instilled in us the basics that we need to know. And when you come into 20, we're talking about being on our own. Some of that may be in college. Some of that may be starting to move out. Some people may still be, you know, living with their parents. But for the most part, the money, you know, you're working. And something also that we left out, I know that we would all agree on, is work ethic. Instilling work ethic. If you don't have work ethic by 20, you're screwed. I mean, you really got to instill that. Like you are, your kids need to see you have that work ethic. And whether that's through, hey, if they're going to do sports, going at it about it like a job, not just showing up, but working hard. You know, if you're going to play football, basketball, whatever, do the weight training, do it all, be involved, do what it takes. So you can instill that in them by more than just actually a physical job. It can be sports, it can be things like that. Teamwork, those things are important because you got to, you know, to make money in the world, you got to work with people. You got to partner up. So those are some things. But I think as far as 20, now we're looking at the path, a trade, college, the idea of minimizing the debt to get the degree, but a path carved out of how they're going to be able to be on their own successfully. What I don't like is this idea of when you're 18, you're out of here. Okay, well, that's fine. The child that you raised, if you want to feed him to the wolves, that's fine. But when you say that and you haven't prepared them for anything, you're the failure. That's my opinion. You know, like just to say you're out of here. Okay, so you're just going to throw them out there and you never did anything to prepare them. So it's about preparing them, but it's also about helping them to establish what they need to be able to go out on their own. And also make the right decisions while away at college or wherever they're at, right? So that's part of it. So I think that their path on how they're going to be successful needs to be established. And if you don't get that from a parent, you need to be focused on that. So you need to be focused. And the real simple thing is just say your parents taught you nothing. What you do need to know is you're going to have some level of skill to make it. Are you going to spend 10 years? The reason why, if you're someone who's driven and wants to make it anyway, you're going to always want to make it. So if you're loafing, you're going to loaf for 10 years, and then you're going to, in your late 20s, be like, okay, I got to go back to school or I got to go do something. It's better to establish that plan at 20 years old or 18, right? And then you've got a plan. So to me, it's, okay, if I'm going to go to school, then it's going to be, and there's different ways to get this. If you got a scholarship, then by whatever means, right? I would maximize the what you get your degree on based on how much money you could make and something you'll somewhat enjoy. I'm not saying you just have to go do something you want to enjoy at all, but it's like, hey, I got a scholarship. Cool. Let me do that scholarship. And let me also do engineering, pharmacy. There's any number of things. You can do supply chain management. There's all kinds of stuff, but you can do the research and tell which ones are going to get it to you quicker. I don't think it has to be as quick if you get a scholarship. You can take a little more time because you won't owe anybody anything. So some of it is just by gauging it like that. But ultimately, if you're not going to have the scholarship, you need to go to community college. You can go to community college almost anywhere and basically not owe anything. So get the first 2 years knocked out. And then, we're looking at the last 2 years. And if you have to take some loans out, well, then you have to be wise about it. But at least you only owe for 2 years. But you need to focus on how can I obtain a trade or school for as cheap as possible. And it ain't no 1-to-1 ratio. Spend $100,000 to make $100,000. That's not a good idea. And certainly not spend $300,000 to make $80,000 or $30,000 like some people are doing. So I think that's the focus is from 18 to 20. How do I get a degree or a trade that's going to, even if it's not my final resting place as far as what I do my final kind of stopping place as far as what I'm going to do career wise. At least it's going to get me to a place where I can afford to pay my bills. I'm on my own, whether that's apartment or whatever. And with all those other habits, you really should be set up to continue to improve upon that. So, 20 to 30 is where a lot goes on. So you got to focus on that. And then you got to focus on the rest of it is, I think personally, you should be focused on, is there some type of business I can start? If you're not going to be good at business, then you don't have to do that. But just know that if you have real aspirations for really making money, you really need to try to think about, is there something business-wise you can do? And then let me just point this out. Because they're in that age, you start your job, do the 401k from day one. Don't fool around. Or I'll do it when I do it from day one. Anytime someone's going to give you free money or match it, you take the match and you go above and beyond it. And why can you do that? Because earlier you established that I always set 20% aside. So that's what I think as far as that. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll pass it on, is just at that age, you're starting to think about the significant other coming into the picture, what attributes they need to have. You very well may have, in your early 20s already somewhat established that, but you got to focus on what's that significant other going to be like. You don't need to be in a rush, but you need to think about what that looks like, how they fit in, and do they don't have to have the exact same upbringing, because you can balance each other out. And when I say upbringing, as far as money wise, it doesn't have to be the exact same, but you can't pick someone who ruins all that's gotten you to this point, that you write them off and keep on moving on. That's the way that I see it. But you got to start thinking about that as well, because everything you've done to put you in the right place, and then you go and get with someone who, makes 30,000 and owes 300,000, you're stuck. You're in a bad shape. Now you're both in bad shape, because you basically both owe, if you want to just do the math, 150,000 now. So you're in debt now. So that's something to just think about and stuff like that. So let me go ahead, bring you guys back into the fold. You want to go ahead, Tim, and what do you think from 20 to 30 is should be, that focus in, getting to the right place, getting to the right destination?
Well, 20 and 30, I think it's a lot going on at this age. Now, I think 20 and 30, I think when we talk about financing, I think it now becomes a little bit different when you think about a man and a woman. And the reason why I say that is because it's going to be a lot of layers when you're in this age, because this is the working age, and this is the working age in a lot of areas. And you should have the energy and the endurance for that. So I'm just going to list a few things. I'm going to try to keep this brief because it is a lot in this age. But I think, one, you got to first focus on outcomes. Nothing else matter at the age 20 to 30. You got to be dead focused on what type of outcome that you're looking for, because that gives you a vision and a drive and a path. That's one. You talked about skills. For a man, I think they really need to hone in on what skills. If you're going to go the college route, you cannot go to school, and this for both man and woman, you cannot go to school for an unmarketable degree. It does not make financial sense. So one, you got to know that. I think also for a man, though, if you're going to go to school and college is going to be the route you're going to go, I think you absolutely need to focus on building a network while you're in college. And I'm talking about building relationships that's going to carry you and push you through the process, because the number one thing that you're going to do is you could be able to invest more when you get more skills, so you can put more money in, you can live off more, and you can save more. The next thing is, I think for a woman, I think she needs to focus on, if she's going to go the career route, that's fine. If she's looking at family, she need to think about that. But I think her biggest key is she need to make sure she focus on how to have a relationship. Because I think we're in an era now where we get this one-sided thinking. And I think that relationship has to also be part of that DNA, because also with relationship, she could also be building her network out also. And her network should be, if she want to look at family, then that network should be other women that wants family too. That's one. I think the other thing is, I think because you in the building phase, I think you have to think about based on what you want to do with your skills, what type of skills you're going to do, or if you're going to go to get a trade. And if you know business not for you, you're not going to be going to business for yourself, that is fine. So if you're going to work, you need to think about what's going to be your path for advancement. Promotions, going through whatever the company is, going through their training program. Because if you're going to work somewhere, you might as well strive to go to the top. But the biggest benefit you'll get is you'll be able to learn skills that's going to carry you to wherever you go. And then I think that you got to be focused on saving money. I think saving money and investing is going to be the pinnacle of whatever you do. I think if you looking to stay on campus or be on campus, I think that you should really probably think about, especially for if you're going to join a fraternity or frat or whatever the case may be, I think you should own real estate somewhere near the university. I think it doesn't make sense to pay all this money to somebody else when you can own some real estate, you can rent it out to a couple of your buddies. Y'all all stay there. Y'all all getting the education. And then if you leave, you're going to go off. You can sell the property. You made money. And you could now have some other seed money on top of whatever else you're doing. Or if you're in school, I think you can leverage that, because I say also in that age, you should be taking advantage of whatever free money that you qualify for. I think it's a lot of things to this, so I'm a kind of in it there. But I think the key things is you got to focus on skills. You got to be laser focused on what type of outcomes you want, and then you also got to be working on building your network while you in the building phase. So that way, when you get to 30, you have a lot of great things and you have a good, strong foundation. And I'm telling you this as someone that I did some of that, but I didn't do it at the level that I could have done it at, as I look back on some of the things that I was doing. Now, I'm not saying that it's all about money, but I do know that because you have the energy, you have the energy, you have the path, then I think money should be a priority, because I like to say this is going to be the key building phase for the outcomes that you're going to have after 30, when you get in your 40s and when you get in your 50s. And then the last thing is, I think throughout the entire process, you also need to focus on your health, because what you do in your 20s is going to catch up with you in your 40s and your 50s. So you can party some, but don't make partying become the end all be all for everything that you do. So take some time to also focus on your health, because health is not just money. Health is wealth, because if you make all this money and you lose it to the medical system, that just doesn't make sense. And I kind of ended there for me.
Good. Great points, man. Great. Absolutely great takes. Great takes. Sim, what you got for me, man? What do you think, man? We're talking 20 to 30. What's crucial? At that point, you're generally off on your own. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Tim covered quite a bit right there, and I don't know. He stole my thunder for sure. I'd say at 20, you really need to understand yourself. Like it took me a while for me to really find myself, but you need to spend time really figuring out like where your motivations are at. Like, are you a people pleaser? Are you a loner? Do you find yourself having to be around people and then you're like the life of the party? Is it a situation where you can be on your own and move in a completely different direction from everyone else? Because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it can sound like a fantasy if it's a situation that you're not capable of actually doing, or something that you're not capable of doing. I personally think that Tim covered quite a bit, and the best investment that I believe you can make is in your brain right here. Invest in your brain through reading books as early as possible and put yourself in position to start to think how a vast group of the population or vast part of the population thinks, whether it's the people who come from affluence, the people who come from tough circumstances and challenging situations. It's really through learning from other people's mistakes that we have an opportunity to potentially skip some steps. Tim really mentioned something that I think is really important. If you're disciplined enough, the money that you're going to spend on an apartment, I have nephew and I have my own child. An average apartment at a college institution or an apartment adjacent to a college institution cost about $1,000, $1,500 a month or something like that. So you got to start thinking, how can we put ourselves in position to potentially rent out to our classmates or our counterparts, or people that we're cool with, that we know that they're responsible. I think that it's very important to invest in your body, like Tim said, and you really have to make sure that you watch the people who are around you, because a lot of the situations that you can find yourself in can make or break your opportunities. You might not be able to gain access to security clearances or required backgrounds as a result of getting in trouble. Some people have an opportunity to have stuff swept underneath the rug, but there's a lot of us who don't have the legal power or the money for us to get legal representation in order for us to kind of circumvent those bad decisions and circumstances. I would also say that you just have to figure out a way for you not to do what everybody else is doing. Figure out a way to be a contrarian person, have a contrarian mindset, and know that as long as everybody's doing that one thing, if you're doing the exact opposite or maybe light years ahead of them, it's an opportunity for you to potentially miss out on the opportunity for you to put yourself in a really bad situation. I see a lot of stuff that happens out here on social media, even myself, lifestyle creep might creep in and try to compromise your opportunities for you to invest and save. But just do what you can in order for you to make your investments here, whether you can study books on stoicism, understand and read books on manhood and things that allow you to be able to assert your position as a young man. And the young ladies, I don't really have much that I can really contribute because I don't really have much experience advising women. I'm more so speaking from my own experience. But those are some of the things that I can speak to, just to add over and above what Tim said.
Good stuff, man. So we're gonna wrap it up soon. Something I want to add to that, and it's not even about the money. It's I actually heard someone say this years ago. I took it personally. Was teaching, especially young people, right? Teaching them, watch out whose car you get in. It's as simple as that. I mean, watch out who you're hanging out with and what they're doing. Something as simple as a car ride home can get you killed with the wrong person. So you better make sure the people you're hanging with or you're riding with take their life as important as you take yours, or the money don't matter anyway. So that's just something that's important too, that we can't forget to teach younger people. It's because it's about making it through those years where you don't really have the wisdom. So that goes hand in hand with the money, is just making good life decisions, right? So that's the other piece about it is if you're just laying down with anybody, you got 4 or 5 kids, all the savings in the world don't matter at that point because you ain't gonna be saving nothing. So you have to think it's other stuff like that, like that makes a difference. And you're not setting, I don't care who you are, you're not setting, unless you're Nick Cannon, you're not setting 4 kids up for success. So you're just starting a long line of issues that started with you. So I think it's life decisions as well. We have to think about our life decisions and how they cause financial impact. Now, that's not to say, people have children, right? It's not that, but it's about these continued acts, right? I know a couple months back, there was the guy that said, I didn't want to have, I told him I didn't want no kids, but he's got like 7 and he keeps on doing the same thing. And it's like, we know child support, it doesn't matter what you told them. Child support going to catch up. And it's crazy because let's face it, nobody wants to say it, but we look at someone and we like, oh, I'm married, you got 8 kids, you broke. We think you're broke. Whether you are or not, we believe you're broke because we know how expensive kids are. And that's just how the world. So even the perception that you're broke is hurting you. You know what I'm saying? So I say that to say, think about your decisions on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's real hard for people that are 20 years old, right? Because they're just living from day to day, not really thinking about that stuff that's going to end up costing them. So that's very important. I want to point that out. I want to give each of you a chance to add anything else that you've got. And then if you just want to put, if you want to kind of put a bow on just the whole thing, we talked about influencers, but we talked about 0 to 30 years old. What we should be focusing on. And I thought it was important just to break that down into layers. Because I think if we take it more like that approach, you set a child up for success at the next 10 years. You would hope they come out of school or come out with a trade where they can be successful. Also, they've minimized debt. They don't owe anybody. And then you set yourself up to be able to compete and also be able to take risk to start their business or to try different things and be successful. Tim, what you got for us as we wrap it up in terms of what things, just the overall, just putting a bow on the conversation we had?
I just say for everyone that tuned in, definitely thanks for tuning in and supporting the stream. We appreciate everybody that always come through and support the Finance Bros. But my takeaway is for anyone out there, just know the great thing about finances is it don't matter where you start. It just matters for us individually where we want to go. That's one. And then last thing is that the 2 things that I'm always recommend is, one, just believe that you can do better and you're going to do better. And then number 2, make sure you execute on the information. Don't be a steward of a lot of information. You have to take the information, then you have to do something with it. There's going to be some bumps in the road, but that is okay. That's like anything that you learn. You take a couple lumps here and there, but the outcome is so much greater on the other side. So you could do it, believe in yourself, execute, and then you'll be a lot better today than you were 6 months ago.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Sam, what you got? What you got to wrap it up and kind of put a bow on everything that we've talked about today?
Man, I don't even know how I'm supposed to even follow that, man. I mean, what I can say is this, just know that your parents out there, I think about the likes of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton was very, very young when he was being trained on how to drive and having a competitive spirit. All the way back from the time that he was maybe four years old. A lot of people prepare their children at like 4 years old. So we have to think about the people they can become at a young age of 18 as a result of those investments that happen from the age of 4 leading up to them becoming an adult. We have to look at that the same exact way as us putting our children in position for them to be competitive out here, for them to have a fighting chance. Now we're fortunate in this economy to have early college, as an opportunity for a child to potentially have credits going into college so they don't have to be in school as long as everyone else, you know. Just think about the little steps, the little investments that you can make in your child, whether it's just a heart-to-heart conversation about things that are centered around your life and some of the discoveries that you made later on in life that you think that they can benefit from at a younger age, you know. So nothing too complicated. Beyond that, don't forget to invest in yourself first, make the contributions here, you know, because ultimately you're going to have an opportunity to realize those going into the future. And that's it.
All right. I thought that was great. And just in final comments for for myself, I think you guys nailed it. It's kind of hard to follow that up. I think just in the general thing, this is really when we talk about success, this is really parents and it's the child, right? As they grow, you've got to set them up for success. I would hope that you would want to set your offspring up for success, but really just trying to get them to the point where, you've taught them as much as possible. And even you as a parent, if there's things you didn't know, you got to teach yourself so that you can equip them. And then beyond teaching them those things is really trying to get them to a point where you teach them how to minimize debt. That's why I think it's so important. If you can get them to that place with not having any debt and they've established habits of savings, you're really putting them out there with the best chance of making it and being successful. So many people are saddled with debt. Like I said, when you're saddled with 200,000 in debt plus, or whatever the case is, you're starting so far behind. A lot of people don't even have the mental capacity to press forward and they give up, right? Or they start to say, well, I'm not going to pay that. Someone convinced them, you ain't got to pay that back. Okay, well, your credit will suffer. And then you see you can't get the home you want. And I'm sure it sends some people into depression. So it's just knowing that every step along the way, that it's important to really stay focused. And what you really should be trying to do from the beginning on is always minimize those debts and maximize your earning potential. There will be a day where your earning potential will go down. So that's why it's so important to maximize it, while you can. And we will pick back up and speak on this again because, we only spoke on, newborn right to 30, but you got 30 to 60, and then you also got 60 to 90 and beyond, right? So at this point, people are living so long, there's definitely more phases for us to attack, but we definitely appreciate each of you for supporting us and just taking part in it. As always, we'll be back next week. I definitely want to shout out to Sim, shout out to Tim. Definitely always appreciate just having this conversation with you all. And we hope that we're giving you tangible information that you can actually take and do something with it. And also in return, take a chance. We'll start making sure you have our emails as well. Ask us personalized questions, because that's what this is really about, is getting to a point where you're asking personal questions. We don't know your individual situation, but if there's some information that you would like or like to ask questions where we learn what we've learned, you ask those questions and we will definitely, absolutely provide feedback. Thank you again from Finance Bros to you, and we'll see you next week.